The goal is to avoid mediocrity by being prepared to try something and either failing miserably or triumphing grandly. George St-Pierre. From learning karate at the age of 7 to defend against a school bully, to working as a garbage man for 6 months to pay the bills, GSP is what many would consider one of the greatest fighters in mixed martial arts history. He wrote a book called The Way of the Fight. I highly recommend you check it out. I'll link out to it below. But in this video, I'm gonna go over my 4 key takeaways. So, my first big takeaway from GSP is to seek clarity. He writes that when a man is unsure of what his purpose is, when he's unsure of what his intentions are, when he's unsure of who he is, that is what creates the space for fear to seep in. When fear seeps in, it creates inaction. It puts you in the world of what if, where you begin imagining all the negative scenarios that would happen if you did take action. And at the end of the day, it holds you back from becoming who you were meant to be. Now, GSP also writes is that you can tame fear like a wild animal, all right? And the way to do this is by first getting clear on what your intentions are, getting clear on who you're trying to become, and getting clear on how the goals you're trying to achieve factor into the life that you're trying to create, all right? So the lesson is to begin with the end in mind, all right? Figure out who you're trying to become, figure out what you're trying to achieve so that your decisions become more clear as well. Because once you can get very clear on what your priorities are, then your decisions become very easy as well, all right? Now he ends the chapter by saying that any course of action that you decide to embark on will have a share of risk involved with it, all right? Because if it didn't, then that would mean that it's not a worthy path to go down. Because if there's no risk, then there's no reward for the most part. But there's also a risk with not going down that path, and that risk is actually way greater than the risk of actually going down that path. Because as a wise man once said, the decisions that you didn't make are what you will regret more than the decisions that you did make down the road. I think I butchered that quote, but it's something like you'll regret the things that you didn't do more than the things that you did do when you look back 20 years from now. So get clear on who you want to become, get clear on what you need to do to become the person you want to become, and that will remove the fear from, actually it won't remove the fear because fear doesn't go away. What it will do is that tame the fear so that you can use it as a compass directing you towards the area of maximum growth rather than it holding you back from taking the actions that would move you towards your goals. And that brings us to my second key takeaway from GSP, and that is to master yourself. He starts the chapter with a quote from St. Augustine, which is that conquer yourself and the world is at your feet. So what separates a successful person from an unsuccessful person is that the successful person is able to get himself to do the things that he needs to get done, regardless of whether he feels like it or not. The successful person is not a slave to his mind, he is not a slave to his emotions, and he consistently takes action towards that which he's trying to achieve, and eventually the universe gives in. But another point to consider is that no two people are exactly the same, all right? What works for one person might not work for this person, and what works for this person might not work for you. When you look at what path you need to go down in order to achieve your goals, you have to figure out your own individual preferences, likes, dislikes, goals, and direction moving forward, all right? The key is constant experimentation, measuring your progress, and adjusting as you see fit. To echo the wisdom of Bruce Lee, take what's useful, discard what's not, and add what's uniquely your own. And that brings us to my third big takeaway from George St-Pierre, and that is to engage in the process of constant and never-ending improvement. So GSP uses the example of Socrates, all right, who is one of the most famous philosophers of all time. I mean, we're talking about him thousands of years after his death, and Socrates said that the only thing I know is that I don't know. Socrates understood that true knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance, all right? So the point is to constantly be engaged in the process of self-improvement, to constantly be engaged in the process of self-growth, to constantly be engaged in the journey of learning and understanding that there is no finish line, all right? Because every mountain peak that you conquer reveals the view to an entirely new landscape, and you have to understand that your potential is a moving target, because every target you hit will give you the perspective to actually figure out what the next target is, and you keep moving forward, all right? You never get complacent, because life is a journey of learning, and anytime you think that you've got it all figured out, or anytime that you think that you've reached a certain end goal or finish line, that is the time for you to pause, reflect, and figure out how you want to proceed moving forward. Because like Einstein said, that life is like riding a bicycle. The only way to keep balance is to keep moving forward. And that brings us to my fourth and final takeaway from The Way of the Fight, and that is that the bad creates the good. And I'm just going to read out a quote directly from the book, which I think beautifully sums up this idea. Suffering allows you to truly appreciate release, which means that there's an odd relationship with balance. When great depths of unrelenting sorrow are punctuated by great peaks of joy and liberation, the result is delicious. True pleasure does not exist. It's just a temporary release from suffering. So you can't have the good without the bad, all right? Both of these aspects are part of the journey which we call life. The point is to ride the wave, embrace both of them, and also understand that when you're hitting your targets, when you're successful, when you're hitting your goals, there's not much of a learning experience that's taking place, all right? But when you're down and out, when you're falling short of your targets, that's when you can pause, reflect, and figure out how you can improve moving forward, all right? And if you want to improve the quality of your energy so that you can have the potential to strive for what you're truly capable of, then I highly recommend you check out my free testosterone quiz linked out below. Answer a few questions, and the quiz will tell you exactly what you need to focus on in order to naturally increase your testosterone levels so that you can have the energy to become the man and strive for the potential that you're capable of expressing in this world. So check out the quiz below, or go to trippleurt.com/quiz, and you can figure out exactly what you need to do. With all that being said, this has been Mo Salim, and I'll see you soon.